lot can happen in 5 years, and for me, it has been 5 years since Toothless and I united all of the dragons in the Vikings of Berk, because we were almost on the brink of collapse and extinction had we not changed our ways, so we wouldn't have had no other choice but for the dragons to join us in being an aid both in coexistence and in battle. Now we spend our time charting the island's unmapped territories, but during one of our adventures we discover a secret cave that houses hundreds of thousands of wild dragons and a mysterious dragon rider who it appears to be grotesque at first, but then we learn that this it is a her, and this her turns out to be my long-lost mother, Valka. Toothless and I find ourselves at the center of a battle to protect Berk once more from a power-hungry warrior named Drago, not to be confused with the Russian Ivan. Drago! The inevitability of DreamWorks' Fire and Brimstone, How to Train Your Dragon, to get its sequel is elevated with the Mount Rushmore of the catalog. How to Train Your Dragon 2 has a formula that adds an immeasurable amount of proficiency as Shrek 2 and Kung Fu Panda 2 that made them the respective peak of those franchises. The thing that each of these sequels have in common is that they do not waste any time trying to be a redux of the original. Like if there was something that the original film was trying to put an emphasis on, the sequel doesn't put an emphasis on it again, but it continues to move forward onto something else. Here, it does what all the great sequels throughout cinema have done, like I've said before, by simply maturing its characters and world. So, taking a simple goal from the original film, achieving that simple goal, and then building on a new simple goal instead of just trying to rebound that same goal you've already achieved. But the duration between How to Train Your Dragon 1 and 2 is felt, as all of the Vikings, including my friends Ruffnut, Tuffnut, the twins, Snotlout, Fishlegs, and my lady Astrid. With the exception of the prologue, the rest of the film feels as progressive as it needs to be. Throughout the movie, I was enjoying it as much as the original, and the story was just as compelling, even if there was not as much of a focus on Hiccup's relationship with Toothless. The establishment of our dynamic brought the right amount of heat to our delight, to where it would never die down. How could my relationship with Toothless die down? Am I right? It is through the simplicity and the grounded moments and the epic stakes in the story that makes these movies work. Because the bondage that gets broken in order for the bonds to be formed with each other was poetic right from the start. This is proven with the bond that is made between me and my mother Valka. And you start to learn that Valka long desired for the Island of Berk to change its course of action concerning the dragons, even when I was just an infant. When I was an infant, I noticed a dragon almost trying to attack me, but then I comforted it, or I made peace with it. And this was obviously a trait that I got from my mother, because she was making peace with the dragons too. She connected with the dragons on a spiritual level and an emotional level. Not because she was lost, but just because she had that luxury of doing so, and I had the luxury of doing the same thing. So to see how I, in a way, acted on a wish fulfillment of prosperity made primarily by Valka, my mother, through coexistence over conquering is a sight to behold, and is what makes her bond with me as organic as my bond with Toothless. Now the worst case scenario of bonding in the form of bondage is with Drago. While Drago is not the most class act DreamWorks villain, he is somebody who bonding with the dragons is his bondage towards them rather than liberation, and this only makes him dangerous but tolerable. So he kind of has this skill that I have, but he uses it to the detriment of the people he comes across rather than the benefits. See, with me, when I first met Toothless, when I first looked in this dragon's eyes, it was a unique dragon. I wasn't unaware of what this dragon was. I was very aware of this dragon being a night fury, but it was because that it was a night fury that I caught it, and nobody's ever touched a night fury, seen a night fury up close, shot down a night fury, and I did all three, and I did it at night. I did it in a time where nobody would see the night fury. So just to have the luxury of connecting with somebody, with a creature that's the last of their kind, and to learn that I get that from my mother, who actually connected with many different dragons of vast different species, all to be under the the alpha dragon, the bewilderbeast, which is the ice spitter that I saw that made that ice capsule in the beginning. It's extraordinary. And I know that it kind of makes sense as soon as I find my mother once again, it makes sense for me to say goodbye to my father Stoic, because as you can see, I am on my way to being chief, and it's time that my father passes the torch on me while I have the guide of my soon-to-be bride Astrid and my mother Valka. Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 92% recommendation. How to Train Your Dragon 2 blazes as a sequel and as its own film again, with its bold storytelling that cohesively balances the simple and grounded emotions with the epic stakes that easily make it soar past its predecessor. In other words, this film works just like how the last film worked, because it's grounded when it needs to be and it's epic when it needs to be. It's never too epic or it's never too slow in the moments where it needs to be. It's perfectly balanced in that way, and that is something that is so rare. That is a rarity that you will see under this studio or just in Hollywood in general, or animation, period. So for that, I'll give it a 94 out of 100 Norse tokens, but that is all that Hiccup has to say about How to Train Your Dragon 2, and until next time, I am the new chief of Berk.